Hello, my name is Paul Anderson. I'm the pastor at Grace Valley Fellowship, and today I'm here with Kelly Raudenbush, who is a child and family therapist. Today we're finishing out a series called Who Am I Becoming?, where we've been exploring how what we do and think and buy and use, the relationships we have, all of these things are cumulatively forming us into someone or something. Over the past 4 weeks, we've explored our environment, our stories, the way we make sense of the world, our relationships, and our habits, how all of these things form us. Today, we're landing the series on the very weighty topic of experiences, how our past experiences, what we've gone through in life, both good and bad, shape our present reality and who we're becoming. For this topic, it's going beyond my expertise. I wanted to lean into someone who has a bit more experience in this. And if you've ever tried to process your past, you know that it's way more than just remembering a list of things, that you probably need some help from God, from others in this. So today we're going to talk to Kelly. Kelly, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
You are a child and family therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us real quick. What does that mean? Like, what do you actually do?
I work exclusively with foster and adoptive families so that the families can be families that help children relearn who they are and how the world works because of experiencing early trauma. What that looks like in actuality is I do a lot of parent coaching, troubleshooting, and helping them to navigate current challenges that are an effect of the early trauma. And then I help children to understand and process their story in something that I call narrative work, going back to learn how to tell their story more truly, and also helping parents to do the same for themselves.
So sharing your past story, even if you're a healthy person without trauma, can be difficult, can be dangerous, can feel threatening.
Yeah.
Sell me on this. Why do you want people to go back and unearth all of that? Like, why would someone take the risk or the pain of exposing that? What's the benefit of that?
Yeah. It is risky. It is scary. It is painful to do. But the alternative of being in a cycle of believing things about who you are and about the people who are around you, believing things like that and getting stuck in that, it's very hard to get out of that on your own. And as you live that cycle over and over again, it gets stronger and more impactful going forward. So yes, it's scary and painful and hard and risky to do narrative work, to go into the past and face things that you might want to shelve. But the alternative of continuing in on the cycle that you're on, I feel like is riskier, scarier, more painful.
Yes, I've seen that myself.
Yeah.
So talk to me. What does this actually look like, this narrative work you're talking about? Like, what does it look like to tell your story? Like, how does it go beyond just, I grew up here and then went to school here, just listing out some facts? What is it? Walk me through a process.
Okay, well, first I want to kind of give a little bit of clarity to say even the facts, like listing out the facts, is really impactful because our memory of facts, it's laden with meaning. The way we tell a story is full of meaning. The details that we include, the people we include, how we tell it, the pronouns that we use, even what we choose to even say is a story, what we make part of our story has lots and lots of meaning. So there is a lot of power in even just sharing the facts. As far as what it looks like in a clinical kind of sense, I would say we tell the story and look for where there may be meanings that are being made about who they are and how the world works that need a little bit of correction.
So let's pull on this thread a little bit.
Okay.
Give me an example, because I think we're all struggling. Like, okay, I tell a story. How would you help someone enter into their story and maybe see it in a different perspective?
Okay, I'm going to share an example like from the clinical space and the work that I do, okay? So a good example to me, I work with foster and adopted children. Each one of those children's stories is entirely unique, like very, very different. But all of them have in some capacity a big goodbye, like a parting with the most enduring earthly relationship that they should have had. So, as we work with children to for them to tell their story, there's a part of their story that is going to be the abandonment, the goodbye. And how they tell that part is very significant. It is not uncommon for a child to get to that part in their story as we're talking, and they say something like, "I left my mom." Now, the story is the same. There was a goodbye, but using those pronouns and having them flipped makes a really big difference in how they assign meaning to that. So at that point, I might say something like, "Oh, hold on a second. Did you hear what you just said? Can I tell you what you just said? Is that true? Did you leave your mom? Can babies leave their mom like that?" And we just kind of do a gentle kind of redirect and magnify, like pay attention to the meaning that they're assigning to their story, because oftentimes they don't even know the meaning that they're assigning. Does that make sense?
It does. So what is, specifically, push into this a little, I think a lot of, if you don't have background in this, which I have very little,
Okay.
a little bit of familiarity.
Yeah.
A lot of this just sounds psychological or woo-woo. Like, how does this actually change a person? Like, what about this process? Where does the power lie in this, in your experience, or your actually training?
Yeah. I think that's a good question, and one that actually I feel like parents ask often, because parents may come to me initially with current challenges, maybe not because they want to process their child's story with them. So I have to sell people on this. I have to present it to them of why this is helpful, why this is useful. And my answer to you would be, going back and retelling the story does not change the child's story. In my experience, in the clinical sense of working with children, but this would apply similarly to the adults and to the parents when we talk about their story. It doesn't change the facts of their story, but it changes the way they tell the story. And if we can change the way they tell the story, not in a way to sugarcoat things or to fix it, but to identify misconceptions or where there might be places where they're believing something about themselves that is not true, when they can do that in a safe place with people who are resonating with them and attuned to them and giving lots of acceptance to them, they learn that they're not alone in it. And we can very gently kind of reveal places that we can make adjustments, even if the story itself doesn't change.
So let's go a little further on one piece, because you and I have chatted offline a little and talked about, why can't someone just go off and do this on their own?
Right.
Why can't I just tell my story and process it, go off on my own? You've pushed back and said, no, the other person is really critical in this.
Yeah.
Talk to that.
Okay. I think there's a little bit of work we can do on our own. So I'll preface what I'm saying to say, you can do things on your own, but it's very, very hard to do the work on your own. And as risky as it may be to share it with another person, you can experience things in a different way, in a much deeper way. Because as we share what we see as the most challenging parts of our story, maybe the ugliest parts of our story, the hardest parts, or the most shameful parts, the parts we'd rather hide, as we reveal that to someone else and experience someone saying, I'm not going to leave you here alone. I'm here with you, and I'm going to help you to see yourself more clearly here. When we experience them experiencing us, our experience changes in a way that doesn't happen really on our own. We can get this far on our own. We can do some work on our own, but it's way more impactful and way deeper when we can do it and experience someone looking at us across the table.
So connect this, what you just said, with, I know you're a longtime GVF member. You're
am.
a follower of Jesus.
Yes.
And so someone's sitting there saying, this just sounds like psychological stuff. What does this have to do with the Bible, following Jesus,
Right.
The gospel? What is this someone experiencing your story, sharing your story, processing that? What does that have to do with a relationship with Jesus from your background?
I would say that my experience of the gospel, of Jesus, being in relationship with Jesus, is just what I kind of said. It's the picture of Jesus knowing and seeing the darkest parts of me, of who I am, as well as my experiences, of what I have done, as well as what has been done to me, and still pursuing me, dying for me, like the once and done part of the gospel, as well as continuing to pursue me and desire me and want to be near to me. Like that is the gospel. To me, that is the winsome part of Jesus and my experience of Jesus. The work that I'm describing between human beings across the table is a felt experience of the gospel to me. For someone who knows Jesus already, it's a way to feel the gospel, to experience that with another. But also for someone who doesn't know Jesus or doesn't follow Jesus, I think it gives them a taste of what the gospel could be for them.
So it's almost like we're the hands and feet of Jesus.
Yes.
If someone had just thought that up and written that down somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's get a little practical here.
Okay.
Let's say, okay, I'm convinced. I need to go through my story, my narrative work. I
Yeah.
need to process that. I haven't taken the time to really understand that. But the reality is that there's not many safe people out there. A lot of people wouldn't know what to do if I go out there and just
Sure.
vomit up my deepest, darkest
Even if their
secrets.
intention is to be.
And even,
right?
and some people might be really nice, really helpful, but they might unintentionally be really hurtful in that process.
Absolutely.
So let's, from two different angles here, coach us through this. On the one side, let's start here. I'm looking to be a safe person.
Yeah.
So I want to be the person that people can come to and share their stories, and I can be the gospel for them. I can show them unconditional love, acceptance in that. How do I be a safe person? Coach me through that side first.
Well, let me first say to you, like, this is hard even for me. Like, this is hard. Like, this is part of the human experience for this to be hard. So if someone is listening to this and feeling like, oh, this is too hard, there's part of me that just wants to say, like, of course it is hard. Like, it is hard for everyone. Even someone who has made a profession out of doing this, it's really hard. It's much easier for me to kind of speak to this side of it, of how to be a listener.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've had lots of practice at that. So let me share kind of first that side to say, I love having the conversation of how to be like a safe person. And this is something that I work with parents to do. Like before their child ever enters the room is how do we be that safe person for them? Because parents want to be the safe person. So the first thing I'd say is we want to be accepting, we want to be empathetic, and we want to be curious. What I mean by that is giving our child or our person, in in a casual type of relationship, a lot of space to experience whatever it is that they're experiencing, that whatever was unmentionable that they are now mentioning is okay. That's okay. Being present in it with them, rather than distracted by all the things that can be distracting to us, looking for something that we can say makes sense. Simply just saying, it makes sense to me that you would feel that way. Those are very, very powerful words to someone. It's the words that mean, like, you're not crazy. I'm hearing you, and it makes sense to me. Doesn't mean that you have to agree with their interpretation of the story or whatever it is they're saying. You're just saying, it makes sense to me that you would feel that way. That, to me, is very powerful when we're seeking to be a safe person for others.
So coach me through on the other side now.
Yes.
I have hurts, or I have just things that I've never processed, and I'm looking for a safe person with whom I can process best. How do I find someone who I could share that with? Like, what does that look like?
This is much harder. I feel like generally it's more comfortable to be the listener than the one that's being, sharing.
Yeah.
This is much harder. I have two pieces of advice that I feel like are worth sharing. And this is like me sharing both personally and from a professional view, because I feel like this is so hard for me, even me personally. One, I would say it doesn't have to be like an all or nothing type of approach where you're looking for some, magical person who you can reveal are your deepest, darkest secrets to that you've never divulged before or something like that. It can be that you look for a safe person to just share one thing with. And you just ask someone, like, would you be willing to help me think through this experience? And you just share one experience. And maybe it's not an experience from past. Maybe it's one that's more current that doesn't feel quite as big or weighty. And you just try it on. You just try it. And if you do just a little, you kind of build a little bit of momentum. As we talked about that cycle earlier, I mentioned a cycle. If you can do one little thing, you might be able to get a cycle going in a different direction and pick up some momentum. And then my other piece of advice is to expect some ruptures and some fails in it.
Yeah.
Because even the safest person is coming with their own history and their own messages that they're playing in their head on repeat. And as safe as they may want to be, they're bringing things to the table too. So expect that there's going to be like some mishaps. There may be some misses where you're just not catching each other or hearing each other correctly, and that's okay. So if it doesn't meet your expectations, if that person that you were really hoping would be your safe person doesn't quite get it, it doesn't mean that it's a fail or it's not worth trying again or that it's done and worthless. Maybe you just need to reciprocate a little bit and try again.
Kelly, what a great vision. And my heart for us as a church or wherever you're at in your relationship with God to move forward in this, to become safe people, and then to take the risk to share our stories and grow in that so that we can become who we're called to be. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and I'm excited to share some stories.